Okay, so welcome to today's webinar, which is Global Market Research, and we'll be looking at an example of a COVID-19 study. So today I'm joined by Thomas Marquardt, who's our German franchisee for Ayton Global Research. He's the managing partner of the German franchise, and he's also an expert in market research. So he's really the person to talk to when we talk about analysing our data and how to get the best out of it. So today's webinar is being recorded, and I'll be sending out the webinar to everyone after the event. And there's also going to be a chance for a question and answer towards the end. So if you've got any questions as we go through, please feel free to make a note of those and we'll have a chance to do some answers for you. So the agenda today, basically we're going to be looking at why you need to do global market research. So not just about kind of local market research for your local kind of research you need to do, but why has it got to be global? We're going to look at the global market research industry and also AGR, so Ayton Global Research. What do we do? How do we fit into that? We're going to go through an example of a COVID-19 study. So it's called Life After COVID, and it's a study that we placed across a few global territories. And Thomas will take us through that in some more detail. And then we're going to look at what we can do to help you. So as we kind of mentioned earlier, it's how you get the best out of that data once you've got it. So Thomas, please can you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Carys. Thank you, Carys. I think you need to give me my access to the camera again. I'm switched off.
It's
so
going to be our first joint.
It's our first thing, and of course there are a few glitches and issues. Thank you first of all for the nice introduction, and I'm very happy to be here today. And I hope I'll be here with the camera in a few minutes as well. Okay, I hope you can see me now from my home office in Germany. Yeah, just to briefly introduce myself, you see a picture of myself apart from the camera and a bit of a text. I'm a market researcher I've been a market researcher and insight manager all my life. No, not all my life, but at least my professional life. I've gone through a long career in Unilever, which most of you will probably know, starting in Germany, first of all in market insights, so being responsible for all kind of data, all the data and all the data system and the information systems and brown bottling, etc. And later on, I realized that there's so much more to market research. Also in terms of really understanding people, and really become my passion, understanding people, understanding the importance of understanding people in marketing, also for companies to realize that you need to step out of your ivory tower and get your feet on the ground and understand what your target group is about and what they think and what they feel and what they want. So I've moved to some international roles. I've lived quite a couple of years abroad. I think in the end, I had the most exciting task of building insights and market research in a completely new area, which was B2B food service. So I had the opportunity to travel the world and see how chefs around the world in Brazil and China, etc., are cooking, and bring this to the organization. Having done this, I realized this probably was the best job I could get in Unilever, and I left the company a couple of years ago, built my own consultancy where I could live my passion in terms of bringing the consumer closer to companies and making sure they understand it. And then came Ayton Global Research, and in a way, it was a pity I hadn't met them before, because I was always looking for a company or an opportunity to do some very quick and efficient and good testing. And after some discussions, indeed, I decided to take over the German business for them, or for us, no matter how you phrase it. And since 2014, so the last 6 years now, I've been with the company, building the German organization, growing it, and of course at the same time also being in close contact with the UK team, being in a way also their market research expert in some tricky and difficult issues as when it comes to setting up a few things. And I'm very happy now that I can join these series of webinars and bring some of my understanding, my thinking also to a broader audience. And enough of me, let's move on, Carys.
Thanks, Thomas. So I'm Carys, and I'm the regulatory specialist for Ayton Global Research. So I've been with the company for about 8 years now, and I've really learned to understand our clients. So kind of from Ayton Global Research's side, we're very much more specialist in consumer research when it comes to product testing, although obviously market research is something that we do as a whole. So I kind of got into the knowledge of working with clients and understanding what they need, how to design their studies to make sure they can get the best advertising claims for their products and how to substantiate them. But a lot of that was to do with advertising regulation and other regulations that are involved in developing products. So it really made that my specialism. So Thomas and I tend to work together quite a lot in terms of finding out the best study designs to do with his market research background and with my regulatory knowledge as well. So I've kind of traveled all around the world to talk about things like regulation and advertising claims. And so that's kind of my specialism. So to start off, I want to talk about consumer research. As mentioned, that's Ayton Global Research speciality, and that can cover everything to do with product testing to online surveys, any kind of market research. So the kind of main reasons why you might want to use consumer research is for claim substantiation. So any advertising claims that you have on your product, you need to get those products tested and make sure that you've got the evidence to substantiate those claims. That will help you with any advertising regulations. You can get feedback on things like packaging design. So you can do things like online surveys or send the product to the volunteers to look at it in their own home and get some feedback on the packaging. Same with new product development. It helps with all kinds of stages of new product development in terms of testing out your initial formulations, to testing out your brand perceptions, the product perception. And indeed, I've put benchmark testing in there as well. I think that's all part of product development, because whether you're comparing your product to a new product that you're making, a formulation, you might have a change in formulation, or you might be trying to test it against a competitor and see where you sit in the market. So it all kind of fits in together. At the end of the day, it's all research. What do you need to find out about your product? Kind of don't pigeonhole yourself into, I just want to get my claims substantiated. Really look at your market and your product and see how you can test it and find out the most you can about that product before it goes into the market. So investigating new markets might be a huge part of that. It might be in terms of looking to new countries and get some more feedback on your product in those countries. It could be looking at maybe a new demographic you haven't looked at before in another local country. It kind of gives you all of that feedback before you launch that product. You can get things like testimonials and reviews. So you don't have to just get that kind of quantitative data. You can get those testimonials about your product as well and use them on your website. It also really helps to establish price points. So whether you're a new brand and you want to find out where you sit in the market and whether the price point that you've decided for your product is going to fit there. But you might also be looking again at a new product within your brand and trying to make sure that it fits into the price point that you've already kind of set for your brand. So again, why to conduct consumer research in a bit more detail. So advertising, that's your substantiation of claims, also testing your product efficacy, but it's also ensuring that your product is regulatory and legally compliant in the markets that you want to launch in. Your demographics, you want to assess your product acceptability with your target groups in your demographic, and you also want to target your key demographic. So you don't want to kind of just send out your products to anyone and see who likes it. If you know your product is suitable for women between the ages of 40 and 60, you want to be able to target those, and indeed within the countries that you're going to sell them as well. So you want to again discover that product acceptability in the countries that you're looking to launch your product, which again is why this presentation is so important about global market research data. Make sure you're getting all of the information you can about your global market. Some examples of the claims that we've substantiated through consumer research might be things like 88% of people agree that it moisturizes the skin, 9 out of 10 people would recommend this product to a friend, this kind of thing. So percentage claims and sort of 9 out of 10 claims, they're really good claims that you can get through consumer research. So I'm going to pass you back on to Thomas now. He's going to take you through the market research industry. So Thomas, you should now be able to have control of the presentation.
Thank you, Carys. Yeah, I thought it actually might be useful for you to, well, many people love facts and figures, and I thought it may be useful for people to realize how big market research and market research industry is globally. We are talking about a $48 billion business worldwide, which was 2018, and 2019 has gone up. 2020, probably for all the reasons we know, gone down a bit. But actually, it's huge. It's really huge. And if we talk about countries, you already see it here to some extent over here. Okay, the bigger countries, and this is something that never stops to amaze me, is actually how big the US are in this context. Almost half of the market research industry is in the US. So 43, 44%. It's followed by the UK, which is still a huge market. And then numbers 3, 4, and 5 are Germany, China, France. They are on almost similar level, but much, much smaller than the US. I think is several reasons. First of all, US, of course, is the biggest consumer market. But secondly, also research is incredibly expensive in the US. I've never really understood why. May have some legal issues, but if you ever do research in the US, you might need to realize that you need to definitely have a bigger budget than in many other countries. The big global players, I also thought it's interesting to show these. The biggest one is Nielsen, which is also known for its consumer panels or this trade panels in many countries. Second one is IQVIA, which is a more more clinical testing company, which is not so well known. Gartner, Kantar, and then there's some names that at least are a bit more familiar in the industry. But you also see that it's pretty fragmented. When it comes to what kind of tests are being run, you see that more than 3/4 of testing is quantitative. For those that are not so familiar with the difference, quantitative research is all the research that's related to data and to percentages and etc. While qualitative research is much more about going deeper and psychologically and understanding the reasons why things are happening. It normally requires much less smaller sample sizes and creates deep understanding, but it's also more extensive and requires different skill set. Though of course we also can provide this to some extent. And the majority these days, which is probably also not a big surprise these days, is definitely online research. So more than 1/4 of all research these days is being done online. This, of course, has grown a lot over the years with the growth of computer and online availability. Still 11% by phone, 9% by smartphone, and only 8% is done face-to-face, where you really step in front of the person that you are interviewing. So this has really changed a lot over the last years. And when we come about what kind of tests are running, Carys already mentioned a few that are very typical. I think we are mainly in the area of other Ayton Global Research with these kind of claim testing, which is a very specialized area, but it's a strong niche and it's a strong area. And I know that quite a few are very interested in the regulatory aspects and understanding what needs to be testing, where Carys is also doing a great job in understanding what exactly needs to be done. And we are strong in there, but of course we are more than this. Okay, well, again, some of our typical studies, maybe Carys, you want to step in terms of good things that you've seen in the UK company.
Of course. So yeah, one of our typical studies are to do with in-use tests. So this is what we talk about with product testing. Generally, we're sending products for volunteers to test in their own home to get real feedback. So this is really important when you're looking at claims testing, because you want people to use the product exactly as they would if they're going to purchase it off the shelves and follow those usage directions that you've got on your products. So that's what an in-use test is about. It's a bit different to clinical research for claims substantiation, which is done in a laboratory under control conditions, because obviously that's not going to be how your consumers use that product when they actually take it home. So we also do things like comparison studies. As I mentioned earlier, that'll be things like reformulation or to benchmark your product against your competitors. It's quite self-explanatory. Photo and video studies. So people often ask us if we can do photo studies. So even if it's not a clinical study, you can still have photo uploads. So we can do things like have people take photos in their own home to get those kind of realistic photos. But we can also schedule central location photo studies as well. So this is quite common if we do things like tooth whitening studies, because you want to make sure we've got professional photos to evidence them. Of course, that's a little bit difficult at the moment with COVID-19. So obviously with social distancing measures in place. So a lot of our clients that would usually do that have been doing in-home photos instead. We can also do things like video studies. So maybe not necessarily for that comparison of before and after, but people like to use these to get some video feedback reviews on their studies. So this might be things like a review that you can put in your social media. So we have one client who had loads of videos from the volunteers and they combine them together on their Instagram to be able to kind of have a review video of the product, which is really nice for your advertising. Salon and spa studies, basically, again, quite self-explanatory. So instead of people taking the product at home to test, they might go to a salon or a spa, depending on the product, and have a beauty therapist or a hairdresser use the product. So this is quite common when you want to have feedback from a professional, so feedback from the beautician themselves, sorry, on the product, or from the hairdresser and how it applies and things like that, as well as the feedback from the participant. And online surveys. So this is what generally in the UK we call it market research, but obviously market research covers everything to do with consumer research. So online surveys is literally, again, as it says, people are answering a questionnaire online. They won't necessarily have a product to test, but they're just getting providing their feedback on an online kind of questionnaire. So that can be often used with brands, again, to get some brand perception feedback, but it can also be used to get a kind of analysis of your market, which is obviously what Thomas will be talking about today when we go through the COVID-19 study. Back to you.
Exactly. This brings me back to the study and to the example that I want to share, because in a way, okay, another chart about this Ayton strengths, which in a way clearly leads into this, because we have global panels, we have global standardization, so we can easily do the same thing in many countries at the same time. We have global consumer profiles, so we can also easily find the similar profile of consumers in many countries. We have real-time reporting, which makes things extremely fast, which also brings us to competitive lead time. So we can be fast and we can be quick and we can do things globally. And over there on the right hand side, you see actually where we are currently with more than 500,000 active volunteers and 103 million data points. You see that definitely we have more, we are a bit geared towards a female audience, which may have to do with many cosmetics products, etc., where we are strong at. But it doesn't mean that we can't also do things with men, because men are also interested in doing surveys. But anyway, I don't want to now I think some of you are interested in the results of our COVID-19 study, which we did recently. The topic, everybody knows about the topic, but what we did when it started, we said there were so many surveys dealing with the immediate impact of COVID. What are you doing now, and how are you reacting, and how are you afraid, and what do you think about government reactions? We wanted to do a step forward and look actually beyond the immediate impact, where at that time, of course, nobody knew how long it would take, but we said maybe in half a year's time, things will be over and easier. So we actually looked into the time after the immediate impact. We want to do this in 3 big countries. As you've seen, these are also the countries with the biggest market research industry: US, UK, and Germany. We have a broad representation of the population, so about half men, half women, and broader age group, etc. We interviewed 1,000 people and did it around Easter, so between April 10th and April 20th. Which is already some time ago. It might even be worth repeating it now that a few things have changed. But still, I think some of these results will still be valid and give you some reasons of thinking. We kept it very simple in terms of questionnaire. We set the stage by saying, think of yourself in maybe half a year's time after the Corona crisis is over, and we can go out again. Life goes on, but how will it have changed? So we actively pushed people into a future scenario where they can go on with their lives, but retrospectively want them to think of how life has changed. And we said, first of all, how different will the world be, and how different will your personal quality of life be? And then we said, actually, okay, rather to keep it simple for people, we said actually some key activities that people are doing, and just ask them, do you think you will do more of or less of these activities? And we covered a broad range of these activities that more or less cover most of everybody's life, which is about spending time with my family, spend time with friends at home, spend time with friends going out, cook at home or eat at home, eat out in restaurants, have food delivered to my house, pick up food from restaurants, go shopping for food, travel, of course, travel short haul versus long haul. Work from home, of course, a big issue in Corona times. Use public transport instead of a car. Go out to movies, theaters, sporting events, go shopping at stores, buy products online and look for new experiences. The environment, of course, careful, and exercise. So I think we covered a very broad range and almost everything that people are doing in their everyday life. And well, might actually be worth actually to think of, well, we could have actually included a little vote of what people think is the most is the most relevant one. But interesting is if we go the results, the world is changing, and we see that almost nobody, only 6% believed it will not be different from what we had before. So even in the beginning, actually, people really were in a deep shock and really realized the world will change permanently. Half of the people said it will change a bit, but not a lot. 40% said it will change a lot, and actually even 7% believe it will change completely. We will have a completely different world. So I think quite some dramatic changes expected. Oh. And if we look across the countries, so there's a comparison between the UK, US, and Germany. You see that Germany seemed the least concerned country. So 57% believe it will not be different, and more than half believe it will change a bit. So people were a bit more concerned in the UK and the US than in Germany. I don't know if the Germans are a bit more reluctant to change anyway and to accept change, or a bit more positive. We couldn't really go on the reasons for that. But interesting is if you go into the next second question of quality of life, how different will your quality of life be? Where we ask them, will it be much worse, a bit worse, the same, bit better, or much better? And we saw that actually this is a fairly balanced picture. About 40% believe in general it will not change, it will have the same quality of life, but there are quite a few people, 30%, who believe that the quality of life will even be better after the crisis than before. So there was quite some optimism in terms of, yeah, the world will change, but this is maybe an opportunity to change the world for the better and create a better world for all of us, which I think is quite a positive outlook. I'm not sure it would be the same now still, but it was quite a strong signal. And then we went into the aspects of our daily life, and this is now ranked by the positive evaluation. So here you see all the items again. On the right-hand side, you see in green what people think they would do more of. On the left side in red, you see what people think they would do less of. And so you see a range from spending time with my family is actually what more than half of the people believe they will do more of after the crisis. So obviously this is a kind of rediscovery of family values, or many people realizing that actually it's quite nice and quite good to spend time with family, which they may have missed out before the lockdown. Second thing is exercise, and it goes down to, at the end, use public transport instead of my car, which hardly anybody believes they will do more of. They would rather do, while about a third think they will do it less. So as I already mentioned, most people expect to spend more time with their family, and this you also see the differences between the different split groups over here that we had made in terms of the countries, gender, and also age groups. So you see that in the US, actually, it's even more than 60% who believe that they will spend more time with their family. The least in Germany. Again, Germany is probably most resistant to any change. And it's more the women who believe it than the men. Number two, as I said, was exercise. So again, more than half of the respondents said they would do more exercise. And strongest is this actually in the UK and with the younger people. Number three, and this was the interesting thing, also care for the environment. Again, more than half of the people believe they would care more for the environment. So in a way, probably also reflecting the positive outlook that I mentioned before, that many people believe it will be better. So maybe an opportunity to care for the environment more than they did before. So quite a positive outlook. And this is actually strongest in the UK. However, environment, of course, is a very broad area. As you already mentioned, use public transport instead of my car is the least positive or the item that changes most to the negative. And it certainly has to do with COVID-19 and all the distance aspects and the fear of being closer to too many people. So the car provides a safe space that you can be in rather than public transport. So this is not an overall environmental awareness, but it's still very selective depending on what exactly you are supposed to do or what you can do. What we see is actually life, I said life is coming home. So we already said that spend time with my family is very high on rating what people will do more of. But there would also more than 40% say they would more cook at home or eat home cooked meal. So probably a rediscovery of home cooking. And when I think of Germany and see how many shelves were empty, of course, there was a hoarding element, but there was also an element of much more home cooking because it extended quite a while that people really do more baking and do more cooking, and many seem to appreciate it. Also spending time with friends at home and work from home. Obviously, this is a change of our work environment. You see myself in my home office, and I think many of us will spend more time in home office, even in the longer term, and not only in the acute crisis. As said, cooking, eating at home is becoming more popular, and this is surprisingly, especially in the US, more than half of the US people said they would cook and eat more at home. I'm not sure this is really a sustainable anticipation, but it's quite interesting to see. It might also have economic aspects, because if you cook at home, of course, it's probably cheaper than going out all the time. As said, we couldn't go into real depth of analysis in here, but I found it was a remarkable result. We looked at shopper behavior, and not surprisingly, buying products online is increasing. So more than a third of all people said they would do more online shopping than before, even after the crisis. So this is quite strong. Go shopping for food is also increased. Go shopping at stores. This was more. We felt this was more the kind of leisure trip. This kind of going around and see what's happening, and you see this is clearly polarizing. A substantial amount of people, more than 20%, think they would do more of it, but even more, a quarter of people would say they would do less of it. Might also have to do with the fear of getting too close to other people. So the distancing rules might also have to do with an increase in online shopping. There's probably a big mixed bag of reasons why this is the case, but it's remarkable, and it says something about our our shopping areas and shopping malls. If we look at the split group, online purchasing is growing, especially in the US. So in the US, it's more than 50% who say they would do more online shopping than before, and with men. So women are less infected by it or impacted by it, while men is more, so about 43% who would do more online shopping than before. Shopping trips, as I said, are polarizing, and this goes across all groups. Especially stronger and especially more negative with the older population, 51 plus, who may be a bit more afraid and getting closer to the group that is at higher risk from COVID, and with men. But if we think about going out, there are quite some ambiguous feelings about going out. So spend time with friends. There's about a third who want to spend more time with friends. They probably miss it, what they've done before. But there's also a significant amount of people who think they would do it less, probably being afraid of too close contacts. And when it comes to traveling, you see that especially when it comes to travel long haul, there's clearly more people who think who see this as a negative thing than as a positive thing. In general, going out is not benefiting from from COVID in long term. It's rather anticipated to have negative effects even in the medium and long term run. This, of course, so you see the big differences here in terms of the age group. And this is not a surprising. Younger people have a stronger drive for activities outside. They are the ones who are missing it most. So if we go see these items, look for new experiences, 45% of the 18 to 35-year-olds definitely would do more of it. Travel short haul the same, long haul the same. So they are probably the least afraid of COVID consequences, and the ones who most strive to really go out again and leave their homes and leave their isolation, because this was, as I said, was done in the times of lockdown in all of these 3 countries. We looked a bit at food service, the food service industry, and we already saw that cooking at home is strongly benefiting, or seems to be benefiting in the long run, while eating out in restaurants is polarizing again. And there are more people who think they would eat out less in restaurants than they would do more of it, which also means all the restaurants that were closed down the lockdown will never catch up, and we can probably expect a few more deaths in the industry than we've already seen before. So this is not a very positive outlook. But actually, surprisingly, even the food delivery to a house and pick up from restaurants, which can replace eating out in times of lockdown, in times of quarantine, in terms of isolation, is rather going down. So a lot of it actually really cooking at home seems to catch up a lot from money that was spent out of home before. Here I've split the downturn of eating in restaurants, and we see the strongest in the US. So even though they're slightly more positive than a few, this is definitely much more negative than the other countries. It might certainly also have to do with the economic impact, which probably the US is hit as hard for the time being, hit as hardest, so that many people probably can't afford to eat out anymore, apart from maybe the risk of getting infected. And yeah, so this is the most remarkable thing. Again, as we saw, the younger ones are less afraid and more outgoing than the slightly older age groups. I already mentioned that food delivery element with a similar picture across all age groups. And that brings me already to the end of these of my slides. Just to summarize the key findings that we had in here. Almost everybody believes that the world after COVID-19 will have changed, and we see near equal amounts of optimism and pessimism. The topmost priority is spend more time with families, followed by exercise. Number 3 is care for the environment. The crisis seems to open up a door for acting more environmentally friendly. And this is especially strong in the UK and for women. Life at home is getting a boost. So people claim they will increase all activities related to being at home. For instance, cooking, eating at home was the 4th most common priority. Buying online is supposed to stay boosted also after the crisis, especially in the US and for men. Out-of-home activities are polarizing. More than a third say they will go out more, a quarter will do it less. And we have, not surprisingly, of course, this applies specifically to the younger generation. A higher percentage of participants expect to go out less frequently to the movies, theater, and sporting events, and to travel long haul compared with those who are willing to do so. So the economic impact of COVID, if this is confirmed, is certainly a medium to long-term effect that is negative in out-of-home activities. And the food industry is also expected to suffer long-term. More 20% respondents say they will eat out more in restaurants. 1/3 say they will do it less. Would be worth, of course, repeating this once in a while or after some time to see how this is changing. But I think this already says a lot, this kind of outlook that people had in the around Easter. So I assume they might have a few questions, but we will come back to questions in a few minutes. Just to summarize overall what we've said in our presentation. Ayton Global Research is a market research agency that has specialized on claim tests, and this is probably where most people will know us from, but there's more to it. With our panels and expertise, we can provide you with studies and in-depth analysis on a wider range of topics and methods, and we can do it globally. This is again coming back to the advantage that we see that we have a standardized approach and panels all over the world. And as I challenge us, as a market researcher, I like to be challenged. I like clients who come to me with a fairly broad briefing and say, actually, we don't exactly know what to do, but please help me. And I like to get my brains around finding a solution that is efficient, cost efficient, and suitable for the problem, rather than having someone tell me, oh, we want exactly that kind of test, which may or may not be the best way to do it. And to anticipate one question that might already come: where are we strong? Where can we do research? We can set up research in almost all countries fairly quickly, because we have the social network and the tools to boost our panels almost anywhere. But we already have quite a few countries where we have strong panels and where we can do research more or less as of tomorrow. So fairly quickly set up anything and get your results back in a very short time. Very fast turnaround. So this is about what I wanted to say. And now I'd just like to open for questions. Carys will take over the lead for questions.
Oh, sorry, I'm clicking everything now. Take back control here. There we go. So yeah, if we leave it open for questions, feel free to type away. But if there's any questions that you kind of think of after as well, don't panic. You can email them to us and we'll be able to answer those at another point.
Yeah, you probably have our contact details anyway, and we'll also show them at the very end. So if there are any questions or any challenges, feel free to mail us. But of course, first of all, we'd love to get some nice challenging questions now.
Yeah, I'll leave it open for a couple of minutes for you if you want to have a think, and then we'll move on after that.
So either we were so boring that nobody's interested, or we we already were so detailed that there are no further questions.
Certainly, I think it was really good to see the breakdown of the analysis, and I'm sure everyone feels the same way, because it's not necessarily something that we do a lot in these webinars, kind of go through the analysis, the results. I often talk about why to do the research.
Yeah, exactly.
Way, so it's been really helpful, certainly for me as well. Okay, I don't want to hold everyone up too much. I can't see any questions coming in, but as mentioned, we'll be emailing out this webinar, the recording, so you can feel free to reply to that email if you want to just answer a question on that. But also we're going to share the contact information at the end, so if you want to contact Thomas directly about any market research questions, you can do that. But just to finish off for now, so we've talked about kind of what we do and what we're specialists at, but I also want to give a summary on, why choose us as your market research provider. So we're an award-winning research company. We've won awards for family business, for international business, and we've also won apprenticeship awards. So you know that we are doing good, top quality research. We're GDPR compliant. Of course, we have to be. We're an EU entity, but we also have an ISO 27001, which means that we're assessed on our GDPR abilities, as well as our own in-house data protection officer. So it's not just protecting the massive amount of volunteer data that we have on our system. Of course, it's really important that we do that, and we need to make sure their data is anonymized, but it also lets you know that we're protecting your data. Obviously, especially if you're doing things like product tests, you give us things like your INCI list, things that are really confidential, and you want to make sure that your data is being completely protected. And again, that's global. We've got a global interest in different data protection matters. We've got an ISO 9001 as well, which is also to do with quality management. So again, we're being assessed on these kinds of things. We've got undesirable event reporting, so not necessarily important for online surveys as we've gone through today, but it's really important for you to know if you're doing things like product tests. We've got product liability insurance for that, and also undesirable event reporting is done in accordance with the Cosmetic Vigilance Act. We're a Market Research Society partner. So again, not only do you know that we've kind of got our top quality Thomas doing your market research analysis for you, but also we are a partner. So it means that, you know, our research is ethical, that we're following their code of conduct. We give regulatory advice. So as mentioned, that is my job in the company. I'm able to provide you with the regulatory advice that you need to be able to conduct your research. And you get a designated study manager. So no matter whether it's market research for online surveys or consumer testing for product testing, you'll get your own study manager who will help you through every step of your way, and then what your research objectives are and how to meet those. So we're going to also run some webinars with me and Thomas, partnering up on them. So we've got a few more kind of coming up. So the next one we're doing is the German legislative framework for advertising claims. So we'll be looking at the overall advertising framework in Germany and looking at some studies that have been conducted there to get claim substantiation. We're looking at claim validation, consumer versus lab testing. So I mentioned this again a bit earlier when I was saying about consumer perception studies, what we do, and the difference with that in clinical testing. There's certainly a place for both, but it will give you an idea of what the differences are. And if there is an option to choose one or the other, which one can you choose? And we'll kind of help you with that a little bit as well. We'll look at trends in the beauty industry. So this might become a bit of a regular thing for me and Thomas, where we'll pick out some trends in the beauty industry and look at how we can test those kinds of products and what kind of claims can be made about them. So we're not keeping that quite open for now, but we'll give you some more information on that. We're also going to do a webinar on why local does not exist anymore and the importance of an international outlook. So obviously that's been touched on a little bit today about global market research, but obviously in the time that we're living in now in particular, where people are making online sales and not necessarily going to a shop to buy a product, people are becoming more global quickly because they have to be online. As soon as your product's online, you have access to it globally. So it's really important to think about your international outlook and also think about the regulations that are in place as well. We're also going to have a webinar coming up in a bit more of a distant future on how to create a good claim. So we're looking at some examples of good claims and bad claims and what you can do to ensure your claims are good. Just to kind of finish off, so we're a part of the SDS. Our founder, Susan Ayton, is on the council of the SDS. So they've got a couple of things coming up. They've got their distance learning course. So that can be done anywhere in the world, and it's a recognised course in the essentials of cosmetic science. So if that's something you're interested in, you can have a little look on their website for some more information. There's also going to be the 32nd IFSCC Congress, and that's going to be in London in September 2022. So hopefully things will be a bit more normal then, and we can all meet for the IFSCC Congress. And you can register your interest for that now on their website as well. So just to finish up, here's our contact information. I will put this in the follow-up email as well, so you'll have Thomas's contact information as well as my direct contact in case you do have any burning questions that you didn't want to speak about today, but you might want to email them. We're really looking forward to hosting some more webinars with you, and thank you for listening today. I'll be in touch shortly with a recording. Thank you so much for joining me, Thomas, and I'm really looking forward to
Thank you, Carys, and thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you for listening. Thank you, bye.
Thank you, bye.